Now you talked about the entity, the person. We can look at the story of Ausar, Aset, Seth's, Nephthys, and Heru as a family, and that's the family that is quotes mind, which we call mind, but there's big mind and there's little mind, and I'll discuss that in a second. Now, Ausar is in a sense the total personality, along with Aset. But these have functionalities. Now, the normal functionality would be of Ausar and Aset as a unit, and that really represents unconditioned consciousness, and that is what big mind is. Mind is really consciousness functioning, through intellect and through the physical body on the physical plane. But mind then becomes, or consciousness becomes conditioned. It becomes conditioned by your social circumstances, etc., or your own behavior patterns over time. Now that's where Seth and Nephthys come in, because Seth represents ego, and Nephthys represents the perceptive apparatus that sees the five senses. The five senses report to Nephthys, and Nephthys is perception, and she carries that information to Seth, who is the ego, and decides on how Nephthys should behave, meaning she conceptualizes, she pays attention to this, that, and the other thing. And Seth is the one that says, I like this, or I don't like that, or I don't care about that. So Seth's responses are like, which ends up with desire, etc., or dislike, which ends up with animosity or anger, or ignoring, I don't care about that, which ends up with ignorance and confusion. So you can see, Seth is the disordered personality when Seth is ruling this family, as opposed to Ausar and Aset, which are unconditioned consciousness. Okay, so that's the basis of the psychology. You have all of these entities. Now, what happens? Seth kills Ausar, and what that means, and look at how he kills him. He puts him in a sarcophagus, and then he throws him in the river. So that means your original self, your original understanding of who you are, is suppressed and suffocated. Okay, and then later on now, after Aset, and this is the story by Plutarch, etc., mostly by Plutarch, but again, it's based on Manetho and other historical context. When Aset finds the body, brings it back to Egypt, Seth at night, in the moonlight, and again, this goes back to your idea of the moon and understanding the period of the moon, the 28 period, is important, because what happens, Seth opens the casket, takes out the body of Ausar, cuts it into 14 pieces. So that's the waning moon, and distributes it all over Egypt. But then, of course, Aset and Nephthys then go and search for all these different parts, put them back together. So that's the waxing moon. And once they put it back together, you can see what is the moon. The moon is the reflection of the sun, of the light of the sun, and that Ra is God. So God, that's the sunlight, and the moon is the reflection of the sunlight. That's another way of saying that man, Ausar, who is our eponymous ancestor, is made in the image of God, and that's using that particular symbolism. So here you have Ausar reconstituted, and has an asexual relationship with Aset, as well as one with Nephthys. And Nephthys now becomes Hathor, or Heru, the house of Heru. So it's so interesting. I mean, we can.
Greetings. My name is Robin Walker. I'm also known as the Black History Man. I am perhaps best known for my 2006 book, When We Ruled. Based on this book, I'm launching a new online history course aimed at you, the adults. You could be a parent, you could be a teacher, a mechanic, cleaner, professionals, care workers, security guards, taxi drivers, kitchen workers, entrepreneurs, tech heads, lawyers, all of you. We want people from all over the world to be empowered by our content. We want you to gain mastery over your history and heritage. And you can do this by subscribing to our course. Click on the link to get this powerful, life-changing material.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So now, with the birth of Heru, Aset raises Heru. No, Heru. Heru then, Aset represents pure consciousness, as she was with Ausar. Ausar and Aset are a pair, are a couple. And again, you get into Western ideas of sister, wife, consort, but it's simply the female and male polarities. That's all that means. It really doesn't have anything to do with sexuality per se. We're not going to get into all the gender stuff. But in any event, Heru, or Horus, is her offspring. Now, what that means, and she raises Heru in terms of his strength when he grows up to be a strong young man, and she teaches him. Now, this is that whole business of awareness, because that's exactly who Aset is, the ability to be aware of things or to be conscious of things, as opposed to Ausar, who is the internal consciousness, the primary consciousness. She is the consciousness of things in the three-dimensional world. So Heru now is raised to be able to concentrate and be this awareness. Now, when he's at a certain age, then he's able to fight Seth to regain the throne, because Seth has been ruling, and of course Seth is disordered and he's causing all kinds of confusion and chaos and individualism and war, etc., and poverty, which was not there in the golden age when Ausar was running things, as you know, in the early part of the story. So Heru then fights Seth. And what that means is that Heru is now focused attention and willpower. Just as Atum Ra was the will of God Ra, Heru is now the willpower of Ausar, if you will. And he ends up defeating Seth, of course, with the tribunal of God's watching. So it's a cosmic event, And what that means is that this is a story of every man. It's not just a story of one king per se, but it's the story of every man on the creation. And he ends, gaining the consent through Thoth as an intermediary, and of course Thoth is wisdom, the god of wisdom, and he pleads with the tribunal, and finally they agree, although Ra didn't want to initially. And Ra didn't want to initially because Ra by itself means brute force, and that's what Seth represented, brute force. But the other deities convinced him. So now Heru then defeats Seth and is given the throne. What does he do? He goes to the inner world, the Duat, which people call the underworld. I call it the inner world. And now he resurrects Ausar, meaning that you're resurrecting your soul. And now what he's doing is resurrecting his soul. Okay, when the Duat, he lifts up Ausar, and then he opens his mouth with the ads. And that part of the story. What that means now is that Ausar is able to speak. Ausar is energized, he's allowed to speak. And who does he speak through? He speaks through his son. He speaks through his son, Horus, who is now on the throne. And as you know, Aset, or Isis, her hieroglyph is a female entity with a throne on her head. So what that means now is that he has this continuous awareness, and that's another reason that's symbolized by the Jed column, which is like the backbone, which is the a symbol of continuous consciousness, which in the Buddhist tradition we consider samadhi, or the Vajra-like samadhi, meaning the undisturbed consciousness that is unconditioned, undistracted, etc.
As a thank you for visiting our website, we are giving you a free copy of our exclusive 100 Black History Facts, which is in fact a taster of our course content. Make sure you leave your email address and we will send it right to you. We hope it inspires you to dig deeper into your history and heritage.
So this is that whole, psychic event where, you are confused. Set is in charge. You have this egotistical person who is doing all these things, and then you're able to concentrate your awareness and then unravel, shall we say, Seth and the different conditions of your mind in terms of anger and desire and so on and so forth, and you can look at your mind and see all of the wrong things that you have done, and therefore transform yourself. Mm-hmm. So it's the first psychology, and you can see it in Buddhism, and you can see it, also in Vedanta and Kashmir Shaivism. They all have a similar things. For example, Ausar would be the Atma in terms of Vedanta. And for example, Nephthys would be considered Manas, and the ego would be considered Ahamkara, and Aset would be considered Buddhi. Anyway, I'm not going to go into it, but it's there, just as you're saying. It just has to be elucidated, because a lot of people don't know this. They believe that stuff started with Freud, and psychology started with Freud, and then with Jung, and then all of these, newfangled theories. But there is no psychology. It's there in Kemet.
Well said, sir.
And as I said, the flip side of that is the theology, which was taught in the temples, because you know that the birth of the scenes in the temple in Luxor, where was it? Amenope, the birth scenes.
The Luxor Nativity.
Say that again?
The Luxor Nativity.
Yes, exactly right. That's all there. And that's similar to the birth of a divine child. So again, as you know, that's part of Christianity and the so-called monotheistic religions and so on and so forth. But we'll get into that down the road in terms of what they have copied from Kemet in terms of the basis of their religions, in terms of Judaism and Christianity, because again, Islam is sort of a modification of Christianity, if you will, and Judaism.
Yep, I think we can get into that.
All right. All right, shall we call it a wrap today?
Absolutely. Okay, so we know what we're going to talk about next time round. I'm looking forward to it, sir.
Likewise. Thanks, Robin.